ever since then. I went out into industry and I've been working with pigs ever since. So I still live in Guelph, which is just west of Toronto, and I've been there for 18 years now. So with that said, let's get rolling on the presentation. So model framework. When it comes to using a swine model and making a prediction of animal growth, there are three essential things that you need to have. You need to have a definition of the animal, the feed, and the environment, both physical and social, that that animal lives in. And with those, you can start to construct a prediction model for what's going to happen. Now with the animal, they have requirements, they have desires. They want to grow and reach maturity and express their potential. So within these requirements, you have maintenance, you have growth, and so on. The animal achieves these desires by taking from the feed and the environment that they're raised in, the resources available to them, and this gives their desired feed intake. This is how much nutrient they want to take in on a daily basis to get optimal growth. However, we know that no system is perfect. There are limitations on the animals. One of the first one would be gut constraints. When a pig is small, it can't physically eat enough feed to meet its needs. There are also restrictions in feed composition and in environment. And when you balance these, you get a restricted feed intake. And what the model does is it looks at the desired intake of the animal and the restricted intake of the animal and comes up with an actual daily feed intake and growth. A major factor of our model is stochasticity. What stochasticity means is it's an ability to look at random events within a system. Okay, it's existed actually in the insurance industry for a long time, but this is a biological application of it. It also facilitates variation within the population of animals. So we can look at not every animal being the same, which we know to be true in the barns. It's essential for the ability to carry out optimization. And I'll get into optimization a little later in the presentation. You'll be able to see what that actually means. And we need a definition of social interactions in order to use stochasticity. These social interactions are key to understanding the growth and the ability to grow and consume feed of the pigs. So how accurate are swine models? They've existed for over 30 years, and there's been a constant evolution in the ability of the models to have meaningful outcomes. You can see here the results of a master's degree thesis in the Netherlands. When you use reliable information to generate model predictions, you can be less than 1% of variance from actual results. So we have a saying in using these models, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good information going into the model, then you're not going to have good results coming out. But you can see that when you're using the right information with a knowledgeable and experienced user, you can reflect reality very, very closely. Another aspect of the model is benchmarking. So we use a benchmarking tool called CompuPoint, and CompuPoint allows us to observe and to catalog results from production farms. So we can take all the results over the course of days, months, years, put them into this program, and look at what the actual results are. Then we can compare that to the predicted results from the model for those same farms, and we can validate and come up with solutions for that producer. So with benchmarking, these are some real examples of the program that we use and the metrics that we measure to feed into the model and help make the best decisions possible. So you can see here that it can be categorized as the good, the bad, or the total of that herd. It has an abundance of information, pesos per kilogram, days in barn, number of pigs sold, mortality, feed conversion. It has all the key information that you would need to make a decision on a nutrition and management program. It also gives you the ability to look at year over year, so you can see trends. You can see mortality decreasing in this example. It also works for the sow herd and covers all of the key measurements for the sows. I do apologize, this is very small writing, and it is very hard to read unless you're standing right by it, but it has all the key information. Pigs per sow per year, feed consumption, feed costs, so on and so forth. Again, you can graph the information for the sows and look at it year over year to see if your trends are moving in the right direction or the wrong direction. In this case, everything seems to be trending up and looking good. And finally, you can use it in the finishing barn as well and monitor feed conversion, feed consumed, and so on. So all of this information really powers the model and allows us to make the best decisions possible when we are running it. So accuracy. When it comes to accuracy of the model, there are a couple things that we think about. Is this a scientific model or is it a commercial model? So is it for research or is it for on-farm use? Knowing that tells us the degree of accuracy that we need. Does it need to be high precision or low precision? We know that precision and accuracy are two different things. This would be something from science class when I was much younger, but you can see that you can be quite accurate and hit the target every time, but you're not very precise. Or you can be quite precise and not very accurate. What we try and do is we try and couple the accuracy and precision of the model and give very good results to the producer that are going to reflect what's happening in their farm for real. So we're to look at these individual animals while we rely on the next best information, and that's average information. That's average daily gain, that's average daily feed intake, feed conversion. It tells us what we want to know, but it doesn't quite have the same amount of detail that we're capable of now with optimization. So we really do need it. So the framework for the optimization. I've talked about the swine model, and it uses these three factors together to come up with the very best solution for your situation. And how does it do this? Well, it looks at the animals. It looks at the feed formulation, so the feed that we're giving the animals, and it looks at the economics. This is where it takes human intuition to look at a result and to interpret it properly for you as the producer and say, you know what, for 10 cents per pig in returns, you can save yourself $1 or $2 per ton of feed. On the other side, you can see here that this is a very steep curve, and there's not a lot of room to play around. So that social environment isn't good. They've got too many animals together. We can prioritize what we want to fix first. So again, these two really stand out. We know that those are the first two that we want to fix in order to get things back on track on that farm. But for example, if the producer says, I don't want to change my diets, I like my diets, how can you help me still? Well, then we can look here and say, we need to change your stocking density. We need to give those pigs more space to grow, and you will make more money. They will be happier, they will grow better, you will make more money as a result.
El precio en Canadá no es variable y sus flujos son constantes. Aquí en México tú puedes hacer una predicción, pero el rastro a veces no tiene la capacidad para admitir la cantidad de cerdos que tú produces. Entonces, inclusive se han programado y es una variable que nos pega y gran parte. Hacer predicciones, hay pocos rastros en México que tienen la capacidad para admitir muchos cerdos en producción. Otra es que tú le echas muchas ganas y el precio que condiciona el mercado no te estimula para echarle más ganas. Claro, tienes que cuidar todos los aspectos, pero a veces el precio que anda, que ahorita está bueno, pero a veces no ayuda. Gracias por tu presentación.
So thank you very much for the question and comment. I think I can definitely answer the first comment that you had with something that wasn't shown here. If you're producing a large amount of pork, in the example that we do use in real farms, you have the ability to ship to more than one packer in the scenario. So you can send pigs to more than one place at the same time. So if you're producing too much pork for a packer, you can look at other packers to send it to and who will give you the best money for that pig.
Como bien sabemos, en el caso de la eficiencia y la productividad en cualquier sistema de producción, en este caso en granjas porcinas, va a depender de muchos factores. Aquí menciono algunos de ellos, como pudiera ser la genética. Afortunadamente, a la fecha, todos los productores de cerdos tienen la oportunidad de tener genéticas altamente productivas, con mucha capacidad de destete y tener cerdos con alta velocidad de crecimiento y también muy buena calidad de canal y de carne. Otro de los aspectos que impacta mucho en el resultado final que se está obteniendo son las instalaciones y el ambiente en donde estemos manejando a nuestros animales. Siempre es muy importante tratarles de dar el mayor confort posible para que desempeñen de forma correcta. En el caso de la salud, desafortunadamente todos los días se tiene que estar trabajando con desafíos bastante considerables, pero bueno, hay algunas herramientas que nos pueden ayudar a que estos desafíos sean un tanto menores. Cuestiones de manejo, muy importante aplicar hasta el manejo que consideremos más sencillo, porque a largo plazo puede llegar a tener un efecto negativo en la producción. En el caso de la alimentación, es uno de los aspectos en donde se pone más énfasis, y sobre todo porque está bien evaluado que puede llegar a representar del 70 al 80% de los costos fijos de producción. Entonces, por eso siempre es importante tratar de definir cuál es el mejor programa de alimentación y cuál es la mejor nutrición que nosotros podemos estar implementando para tener el más alto resultado, pero que también en la parte económica estemos perfectamente equilibrados. Y finalmente la parte de economía, haciendo alusión a lo que es la compra de los insumos, la venta de nuestro producto final, que en este caso es carne, que en la mayoría de los casos depende de los mercados internacionales, pero bueno, son aspectos que también impactan en la productividad. ¿Qué es lo que se debe esperar de un programa de alimentación? ¿Qué es lo que debe de buscar un productor, un gerente de producción? Pues bueno, lo importante de un adecuado programa de alimentación es esto, que nos ayude a dar soluciones a los desafíos o que nos ayude a cumplir con los objetivos o metas que se tengan contempladas en la producción de cerdo. Aquí menciono algunos de los aspectos o desafíos que nosotros tenemos desde el punto de vista nutricional, primeramente en el caso de la cerda, y por otro lado en el caso de los cerdos en etapa de crecimiento. En el caso de la cerda, muy importante que nuestro programa de alimentación, por algunas de las problemáticas que ya nos mencionó Peter en su presentación, es muy importante tener la mejor condición corporal, alimentar correctamente a nuestra cerda para reducir la mortalidad temprana de lechones Mejorar la calidad de camada, en este caso desde el momento que está pariendo nuestra cerda, y sobre todo lo más importante, que los lechones que nosotros estamos destetando sean uniformes, estén pesados y sean realmente viables. La vida productiva de nuestra cerda también a través de la nutrición la podemos estar manipulando para que nuestra cerda, que es de alta genética, que es alta productora, la mayor cantidad de tiempos la mantengamos en la granja produciendo lechones. Consumo de alimentos, sobre todo en la etapa de lactancia, es un reto bastante importante, y por esta situación va a afectar de forma importante lo que es la producción tanto de calostro como de leche. Y finalmente, también a través de la nutrición nosotros debemos de tratar de evitar al máximo lo que son ciertos desórdenes o problemas metabólicos. En el caso de cerdos en crecimiento o destinados para abasto, los aspectos que nosotros debemos de mejorar es primeramente el potencial de crecimiento de los lechones, que el perfil nutricional de los alimentos que se están ofertando realmente ayude a cumplir con este objetivo. También reducir la variación de peso, tener animales más homogéneos, el mejor consumo de alimento, que va ligado con los desafíos sanitarios, que principalmente al momento que los tenemos presentes siempre nos van a afectar este factor. Consecuentemente, conversión alimenticia. Los programas actuales también de alimentación trabajan mucho en este aspecto, lo que es calidad de carne, de canal, y reducir costos de producción. Ante estas situaciones, lo que nosotros hicimos fue desarrollar el concepto Caremix. ¿Qué es Caremix? Pues bueno, es esto. Es una gama de complementos nutricionales de muy alta calidad que siempre viene acompañado de un programa de alimentación. Y conforme nosotros vamos teniendo más información o vamos conociendo también las características de la granja, lo vamos haciendo más especializado. Sobre todo tomando en cuenta la alta capacidad genética que tienen las hembras para producir lechones o los lechones para crecer. Es el resultado de años de investigación, tanto por parte del Trouw como de algunas otras instituciones dedicadas a la investigación, todo ello conceptualizado en lo que es ciencia práctica y aplicada, y la aplicación también de la innovación. A través de este concepto nutricional también nosotros lo que buscamos es calidad de producto final, que realmente se esté cumpliendo con la expectativa que tiene el consumidor en la carne de cerdo que estamos produciendo. Por otro lado, otro de los aspectos que se toma en cuenta es la producción sustentable. También a través de la nutrición nosotros estamos trabajando en reducir la excreción de compuestos contaminantes como es amoníaco, algunos minerales considerados como tóxicos. También es importante cómo a través de la nutrición podemos reducir la excreción de estos compuestos. Y finalmente estamos trabajando en este aspecto, lo que es reducción en el uso de antibióticos, y cuando se están utilizando, que se puedan estar trabajando de forma responsable. Conceptos nutricionales que están implícitos en Caremix. Como les decía, hay mucha investigación detrás de todos estos productos, son infinidad de conceptos los que se pueden estar aplicando. Por mencionarles algunos, puede ser la programación metabólica y nutrigenómica, que se refiere un poco a cómo a través de la nutrición que nosotros le estamos dando a los animales en ciertas etapas, estamos manipulando el desempeño posterior que pueden estar presentando a través de la modificación en la expresión de algunos genes, el uso de la energía efectiva para mejorar el aprovechamiento de todos los insumos alimenticios que nosotros estamos trabajando en el alimento balanceado. Concepto de proteína ideal. Actualmente nosotros balanceamos a lo que es aminoácidos digestibles estandarizados. Próximamente estaremos realizando la formulación a lo que es lisina reactiva, que es la cantidad de aminoácidos que realmente están disponibles en sangre para cumplir con todas sus funciones fisiológicas y metabólicas para las que están destinados. El uso de alimentos funcionales y salud intestinales, también parte de los conceptos que manejamos. Bienestar animal, calidad de carne, manejo del estrés, tanto en situaciones de estrés por temperatura o en otros casos lo que es estrés por desafíos de carácter sanitario, que por ejemplo también se aplican algunos conceptos como es manipular el nivel de algunos aminoácidos. Y finalmente también trabajamos en esto, sustentabilidad y productividad a través del uso de enzimas, y parte de lo que ya también estuvimos viendo, lo que son programas de formulación muy preciso, y nos apoyamos también en lo que son los modelos y servicios nutricionales que nos pueden llevar a implementar programas acordes a las necesidades de cada productor. ¿Qué es lo que ofrece Caremix? Pues consideramos que tenemos el balance perfecto tanto de materias primas como de aditivos que nos van a estar aportando todos los nutrientes que se requieren para elaborar ese alimento balanceado que nos ayude a su vez a tener un animal saludable, un animal que esté creciendo, una cerda que tenga toda su capacidad de reproducción. Todos los componentes que están implícitos en estos productos son de alta calidad para garantizar que realmente tengan la efectividad que nosotros estamos proyectando. Al tener productos integrales como es Caremix, también lo que buscamos es tener homogeneidad y consistencia. En este caso me refiero a que con un solo producto que estamos integrando para elaborar el alimento balanceado, nosotros estamos tratando de garantizar que cada bocado que está dando ese animal tenga la cantidad necesaria de nutrientes para que se desempeñe de forma correcta. En la parte de eficiencia también se trabaja mucho con estos productos, sobre todo porque se hace menos necesario tener un gran inventario de muchas materias primas que en algunas ocasiones tienen una rotación muy lenta, que salen costosas, que se llegan a caducar, que se incluyen en cantidades muy pequeñas. Entonces, si trabajamos este concepto, estamos salvando todas esas problemáticas. Y pues bueno, es esto, facilidad de manejo y facilidad de dosificación al tener todo en uno. Esto es lo que son la base de formulación que nosotros podemos estar trabajando acorde a las necesidades de cada una de las granjas. Conforme mayor es la productividad que le estamos exigiendo a nuestros animales, también tienen que ser más completos los programas de alimentación que se estén trabajando. Aquí, por ejemplo, en animales posterior a su programa de diferenciación, trabajamos de 4 a 5 fases de alimentación, desde lo que es inicio hasta finalización. En el caso de cerdas reproductoras, mínimamente sugerimos que se trabajen 2 reemplazos. Importante dar una dieta especializada de flushing, pensando en tener también más óvulos más grandes, óvulos de más calidad. En el caso de gestación, dependiendo también la operatividad de las granjas, podemos tener 1 o 2 gestaciones, una fase de transición. Y en el caso de lactancia hay 2 opciones, lactancia estándar y lactancia especial, que se sugiere sobre todo cuando tenemos una tasa de reemplazo muy alta o que también tenemos alguna situación de estrés que nos esté limitando el consumo de alimento. Los componentes de estos productos, pues, si ustedes se dan cuenta, realmente son muchos los ingredientes y los nutrientes que se están integrando, considerando, desde lo que son vitaminas, microminerales, los macrominerales, aminoácidos. Por ejemplo, en el caso de vitaminas y aminoácidos también es importante en ciertas etapas críticas manejarlos a niveles más altos, manejar algunos aminoácidos que no son tan convencionales por el efecto funcional que pueden tener tanto en la salud como en el crecimiento. En el caso de las enzimas, que son productos que realmente están muy de moda actualmente, es muy importante que al momento que se están considerando en las bases nutricionales, siempre hagamos esto, una selección y un mix óptimo de enzimas que realmente esté trabajando sobre el tipo de ingredientes que nosotros tenemos en nuestro alimento balanceado, que nos ayude a reducir realmente los factores antinutricionales que estén presentes y sobre todo que se pueda mejorar lo que es la digestibilidad de carbohidratos, de proteínas o de algunos minerales como puede ser el fósforo y el calcio. Y bueno, hay otro tanto de productos que, si ustedes se dan cuenta, se manejan de forma muy estratégica, como pueden ser acidificantes, saborizantes, para reducir el uso de antibióticos. Pues también tenemos varios conceptos, como es algunos reguladores de la microbiota intestinal, el uso de extractos herbales, por ejemplo en la etapa de flushing, aquí se trabaja lo que son carbohidratos de alta disponibilidad por el efecto funcional que también pueden tener. Y pues bueno, aquí en el caso de la finalización, actualmente en México todavía está permitido el uso de la ractopamina, pues también tenemos la opción de tener estos productos con estos componentes. ¿Cómo podemos dar soluciones a través de Caremix? Lo que pretendemos es no solamente dar una nutrición y que se maneje como el productor mejor lo entienda, sino que siempre a través de cada propuesta que nosotros estamos armando viene un servicio de valor agregado. Y sobre todo a través del servicio técnico, siempre lo que se busca, como ya les había mencionado, conocer perfectamente todo lo que se está haciendo en la granja para que de la propuesta inicial que se armó, poco a poco vayamos haciendo las modificaciones necesarias para tener el mejor programa de alimentación, pero también los niveles nutricionales acorde a la genética y acorde a las necesidades de producción. Con esta finalidad, poder brindar soluciones a la medida y hacer una nutrición precisa. ¿Cómo lo vamos a lograr? Pues bueno, es a través de nuestro sistema modular de nutrición precisa, que es Trouw, modelos y servicios. Como ya lo mencionó Trouw en la primera charla, aquí lo más importante siempre es tener la adecuada valoración primeramente de nuestras materias primas. En este momento nosotros contamos con la tecnología NIR, tanto NIR de escritorio como NIR móvil, para que prácticamente al momento que están llegando las materias primas a la granja, nosotros podamos hacer la valoración correcta de estos ingredientes y realmente saber qué es lo que vamos a estar integrando en nuestros alimentos. Otra de las ventajas que tiene este sistema modular que estamos trabajando es esto, la base nutricional, que se refiere a cómo con ese análisis proximal típico, que es lo que nos da la medición NIR, nosotros en cuestión de segundos podemos generar todo lo que son las matrices nutricionales de granos, de pasta de soya, pasta de canola, de las fuentes de fibra que estemos manejando, de forma tal que vamos a conocer los valores energéticos, el aporte de aminoácidos, las diferentes fracciones de fibra, que a su vez también en cuestión de minutos, al estar ligada esta base de datos nutricional con el programa de formulación, prácticamente al instante se puede estar haciendo el reajuste de esas fórmulas para que de acuerdo a la calidad de materia prima que nosotros estamos obteniendo, ya sea que tengamos una pasta de soya de 48 o una pasta de soya de 44, realmente podamos hacer el ajuste necesario en el perfil nutricional. Si nosotros queremos ir un paso todavía adelante, es donde ya podemos hacer uso tanto de los modelos de crecimiento, el modelo de simulación de consumo de la cerda y del modelo económico para poder proyectar lo que es el mejor programa de alimentación y el mejor nivel nutricional que ustedes estarían necesitando en su granja. Lo importante de todo esto es esta parte, que son modelos y que son servicios con realmente aplicación práctica. Una vez que ya tenemos definida esa parte, para nosotros es mucho más fácil poderles establecer un programa de alimentación óptimo. En el caso de esta gráfica, es un programa que se puede seguir para una cerda reproductora, prácticamente desde que la estamos seleccionando como reemplazo, y vienen también las recomendaciones, por ejemplo, en el caso de la etapa de gestación, cómo tenemos que venir modulando las cantidades de alimento ofertado acorde a etapas específicas fisiológicas de la cerda para tener el mejor resultado posible. Nutrición y alimentación estratégica acorde a las necesidades de la cerda. Y lo mismo, en el caso de cerdos en la etapa de crecimiento, muy importante que una vez que ya definimos las condiciones y las características de esa granja, podemos establecer lo que son curvas de crecimiento especializadas, en donde vamos a estar proyectando la ganancia de peso, los consumos potenciales de alimento, así como establecer el mejor programa de alimentación que nos dé el mejor resultado posible. Definir potencial, proyectar crecimiento y la eficiencia que nosotros podemos obtener. Y pues en resumen, Caremix es estos 4 términos: innovación, nutrición de precisión, aumentar la productividad y que ustedes puedan tener los mejores ingresos. Gracias.
Del otro lado del charco, dos de ellos, y de Canadá, el doctor Trouw viene del Centro de Investigaciones de Canadá, de Trouw, y nos va a dar una charla ahorita de un programa nuevo que tenemos de servicio. La doctora Nienke de Groot, siempre se me olvida, perdón, llevo 3 veces, siempre se me olvida. Nienke de Groot, ella es veterinaria, ella trabaja en el Centro de Investigaciones de Trouw en Holanda, y el doctor Peter Remerkers, ahora sí también lo dije bien, Remerkers, ¿está bien? Remerkers, good. Él también viene del Centro de Investigaciones de Holanda y nos va a dar otra charla sobre algunos tópicos sobre la cerda en el transcurso del parto. Asimismo, quisiera yo presentar a algunos de los compañeros del departamento técnico, el doctor Héctor Yopicio, el nutriólogo de la línea de cerdos. A Manuel Mañales, pues ustedes ya lo conocen, es nuestro representante comercial aquí en la ciudad y alrededores. El doctor Manuel Martínez, que es el líder de la unidad de negocios de cerdos de Trouw a nivel nacional, aquí en nuestro país. Y el doctor Eduardo Luna, que es especialista también en porcicultura y está enfocado a lo que es la producción de lechones, principalmente. Y bueno, y el distribuidor aquí, te estás escondiendo, el distribuidor de aquí de La Piedad, el doctor Francisco Ramírez, dirigente de SNI, y bueno, pues él está, gracias a él tenemos estas facilidades para poder llegar con ustedes en este seminario. Muchas gracias, Paco. Y bueno, pues la gente, le cedo la palabra entonces a Manuel para que nos explique un poco de lo que se trata en la agenda del día de hoy. Gracias.
Buenas tardes a todos, un gusto que nos acompañen nuevamente en nuestro cuarto seminario en nutrición de cerdos que impartimos en La Piedad, y pues esperemos que en años próximos también sea posible estar con todos ustedes. La agenda técnica del día de hoy son 4 charlas, ya presentó Jorge Muñoz a los ponentes, las temáticas que se van a abordar. Primeramente vamos a arrancar con la plática llamada nutrición de precisión, que habla acerca de lo que son los modelos de simulación porcino y su aplicación. En este caso hace alusión a lo que son algunos modelos matemáticos que nos ayudan a predecir cuál es el mejor nivel nutricional, cuál es el mejor programa de alimentación que nosotros podemos implementar en la granja de acuerdo a las particularidades que presente cada sistema de producción. Es muy interesante esta temática y Trouw nos va a hablar de este tema. La segunda charla es a cargo de Peter, es manejo en el periodo de transición de cerdas altamente hiperprolíficas. Sobre todo es muy importante este tema porque actualmente sabemos que tenemos cerdas con una alta capacidad de producción de lechones, pero en muchas de esas ocasiones no sabemos cómo manejar esas camadas tan numerosas, no sabemos cómo hacer el adecuado manejo del parto para que realmente todos esos lechones que estamos obteniendo sean viables. Posteriormente tenemos la plática llamada Resolviendo Problemas de Salud Intestinal. Esta es una temática que está muy de moda y sobre todo por todas las restricciones gubernamentales que se están dando en los últimos años en relación al uso de antibióticos. Y finalmente se va a presentar una pequeña presentación que se llama Caremix Balance to Perform, que es para hablar acerca de la gama de premezclas nutricionales que tenemos para elaborar alimentos balanceados. Y pues bueno, sin más, le damos la palabra a Trouw para que nos comparta su presentación.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. I guess to start off, I'll give a little bit of an introduction to myself. My name is Trouw Woods, and I work for Trouw Nutrition in Canada. I've worked for Trouw Nutrition for 9 years now, and I work with models and the training programs that we do have in place. Originally, I'm from Northern Canada, where there are no pigs. I came to the south of Canada to go to university. I studied for 4 years and got a bachelor's degree in animal science, and continued on and did a master's degree in swine nutrition under Dr. Case Delagan. And with that, entered industry, and I've been working with pigs ever since. Today, I will be discussing with you swine models and their applications for precision nutrition. One thing that I think I should say before we even get going is that the swine model is one piece of a very wide product offering that we have from Trouw Nutrition. And you'll hear about different pieces of that tonight from all the different speakers. So just keep in mind that the component that I'm talking about now is just one piece of a bigger picture. So the framework of the model. If you're going to model an animal's growth and try and make a prediction of an outcome, you have to know 3 basic things in order to do that. You need to know the animal, the feed, and the environment that that animal is living in, both the physical and the social environment. With the animal, it has requirements. It has requirements for growth and maintenance and so on. This animal wants to express its potential. In order to express its potential with those requirements, it needs feed, and it needs a healthy environment to grow in. When the model looks at what the feed and the environment provide to the animal, you get a desired feed intake. So that's how much feed the animal needs in order to achieve its goals. However, we know that a lot of systems are imperfect, and there are constraints that stop an animal from expressing its potential. One of the first constraints that would be in place would be gut capacity. We know that piglets can't eat enough feed to meet their requirements, and so that's a constraint immediately. Also, there can be constraints from the feed, either through imbalanced feed or not enough. And there can also be constraints from the environment, either very hot or where I grew up, very cold, and you don't want those pigs cold. When you put a constraint on the animal, you get a restricted feed intake. And so what the model does is it balances the desired and the restricted feed intake to give you an actual feed intake. And the one thing that's interesting to note is that it is possible to have a constrained system and have a restricted feed intake that's still higher than the desired intake of the animal. So models can be very complex, and the interpretation of the results is very important, and we'll get into that later on in the presentation. One of the ways that we manage to model pigs in a very meaningful way now is using stochasticity. And what does stochasticity mean? Well, it's the ability to predict random events in the population. It's allowing for that random component that exists everywhere around us. It facilitates showing the variation between animals, because we all know that all the pigs in our barns aren't the same. We can look at them and see that there are differences. They're large, they're small. Stochasticity is essential for carrying out activity that we call optimization. And we'll get into optimization later on in the presentation, but in order to do that, to find these best solutions for you, we have to be able to look at the individual animals. And we have to, it allows us and gives us the ability to look at the social interactions of the animals, because the social environment of the animal is very important to its growth and performance. So when it comes to models, I know there's a lot of thoughts, well, you know, how good is a prediction? How accurate is it? Well, we have a lot of information showing the accuracy of our models and the ability to predict reality. Swine models have existed for over 30 years in practice, and they've gone through a constant evolution to improve their ability to predict reality. In the case of the model that we use at Trouw Nutrition, you can see here we took 90 different outcomes, and a master's student in Holland actually analyzed the data and found that with reliable data inputs and a very good user of the model, we can be less than 1% different from reality. We can have less than 1% variation. So the model has a very strong ability to predict exactly what's going on within the barns, as long as we have the right information to put in and a very knowledgeable user who is analyzing the results. Now the model doesn't stand alone, and I mentioned that right at the beginning of the talk. We have other tools within our Nutrioc platform that allow us to fine-tune and make sure that we're giving the best answers possible. One of those is our benchmarking system. We call it CompuPaw. And CompuPaw takes the information from your farm in terms of historic growth, feed intakes, and closeouts. It puts them in one place and allows you to filter results and to look at the results in a very meaningful way and have a better understanding of them. We also have the predicted outcomes from the models, the feed programs, how heavy the pigs have to go to market, all of these pieces of information. And what we do is we have the observed results from the farm, the predicted results, and then we can validate. And validating results is very, very important to us. We want to make sure that we're always reflecting reality. And so when we validate, we can provide solutions to a producer that are very meaningful. Here we go. So these are actual examples out of the CompuPaw benchmarking system. And you can see it has a wide variety of data that we can look at. You can look at the information from your individual farm, from a whole system of farms, or you can compare it to other producers across the country and look at it in terms of the best, the worst, or the total numbers for comparisons to understand where exactly your numbers fall and how you can improve on them. And there is no shortage of data that we can look at, costs, days, mortality, feed intake. There's really any piece of information that you would want to look at built into the system. It also allows us to graph things over time. So we can look at trends and we can say year over year, has there been improvement? Has there been no improvement? Have things gotten worse? It allows us to identify problem areas within farms that we can focus on to make them better and more profitable. This would be an example of some of the sow data. I do apologize, the writing is quite small. It's hard for me to read standing right here. But it would have all of your typical production numbers, pigs per sow per year, how many open days the sow has, your breeding percentage, your farrowing percentage, all of the information that you would want. Again, graphs it over time, so you can see very clear trends in your production and understand how am I going to approach whatever problem it is that I may be seeing on farm. Or perhaps your farm is doing very well and you're just looking for ways to improve on it. Again, with the finishing pigs, looking over time and graphing out your top 50% versus the total and seeing what the differences are, it allows you to get down to the details of the information that you have and really find ways to improve production and ultimately make more money. So again, back to the accuracy piece, we know that the benchmarking and providing information to the model helps with accuracy and helps to make sure that we're making the best decisions possible. When it comes to accuracy, are we looking at a model that is for scientific purposes, for teaching, or are we looking at a commercial model, something that's applicable in a commercial setting on a farm? Because these are going to have different impacts on how much accuracy we actually need. Do we need high or low? This is a nice depiction of the difference between precision and accuracy, and really we like to balance both. With the accuracy, you can be quite accurate, hit the target every time, but you're not very precise in doing it. You're not giving a repeatable result. What we try and do is we try and be accurate and precise. We like to hit the target every time, and we like to be very exact in our response and repeatable in our response. Everything that we do is based on good, sound science, and that's why we always benchmark and we always validate before we bring it to you as a producer. So really our end goal when it comes to running a program for anybody is that we want to see a minimum of less than 5% variation from reality. We have to be over 95% accurate, otherwise that result is not acceptable to us, and we will figure out what went wrong in the prediction. One of the other tools available to us within the whole platform that you'll hear about tonight is the NIR machine and the ability to look at ingredient variability. One thing that we really want to do is limit the variability of the ingredients that you feed into your animals. Because if these ingredients don't get analyzed in proper time and formulas are created, fed to the animals, and the animals go to market without any knowledge of what's actually going on, this can have a very large impact on the cost of your feed. We all know that feeding the pigs is the biggest cost associated with them. I typically say 60 to 70%, but I believe in someone else's presentation, perhaps maybe not, it's up to 75% of the cost of raising those animals. So anywhere that you can minimize the variation in production is very important. What we've got here is a really nice example of using this NIR technology and feed analysis to make sure that we understand what we're feeding the pigs. And this is actually an output from the model itself. What you can see here is a low protein or a high protein soybean meal. So if you've been receiving the soybean meal to make diets with, and the assumption is that it's 48% crude protein, which is the book value, that's what you'll read in almost any manual, you'd anticipate the bottom result. However, if that protein had variability and actually went down to 44% in that soybean meal, you can see how much of a negative impact it would have on production. It can cost you extra days in the barn, it can cost you average daily gain, feed conversions, it requires the animals to eat more feed in order to meet their requirements. But I think the biggest one of them all is the margin. This is over $2 in margin that's left, that's disappeared because of the variability of that ingredient. If it had been managed and monitored, that's money that could be in your pocket. So when it comes to the environment of the animal, it's very multifactorial. There are a lot of things that we have to account for when we're doing a swine model and when we're raising pigs in general. There is the feed, there's space, there's stressors within the pen, they come from social interactions, there's heat transfer between the animals. On very warm days, that can be a big deal, and when they're cold, they want to huddle up to get warm. You've got the requirements of the individual animals and how much feed they need to consume every day to grow and maintain themselves. You've got the feed itself, health, which is a major component, and the temperature of the room. So you can see that there are a lot of different factors that have to be accounted for when we are setting up and running a model in the environment. What we've done to try and simplify this a little bit, to make it a bit more understandable to the user and everybody else, is to break it into two sides, the physical and the social. So the physical environment covers the temperature, relative humidity, what the pigs feel in their environment. Are they hot? Are they cold? Do they have to huddle together, or are they comfortable? The type of flooring that they're on, are they on a concrete slatted floor, or in the case back in Canada, sometimes they're raised on straw, either because they're organic pigs or just to keep them warm. And what's the ventilation like? Is there a lot of air movement? Is that air movement chilling the pigs, making them cold? Is no air movement causing problems with air quality? So these are all things we look at. On the social side, we look at anywhere that those pigs are having interactions with each other. So the biggest factor would be pig space. How much space do they have to themselves? Are they tripping over their neighbor? Are they uncomfortable because they can't lay down comfortably? The feeder space. Is there enough feeder space for all of those pigs to go to the feeder and eat enough feed on a daily basis to meet all of their needs and to be satisfied? And health. If those pigs are not healthy, they will not perform. Bueno. Sorry, I definitely don't want to go on without my translator. But the last point would be health, and we know that a healthy pig grows very well and performs to the best of their abilities. If pigs are sick, we know that they definitely don't grow or perform, and they stay in the line and cost money. One of the last things that really combines this physical and social environment is this transfer of heat between pigs. Like we said a couple of times, on cold days, they'll get close to each other to keep warm. On hot days, they try and stay away from each other, and all of that heat generated can have a really big impact. So with social interactions of the animals, there's a lot of literature on how positive it is for them. So, good growth performance depends on a nice social environment in the pigs. They really want to have a positive relationship with their penmates. Pigs are social animals. Also, there's a very good positive correlation between social environment and growth performance. I think on some level we've always known this, because when we put pigs in the pen, we don't remix them all the time. Because we know that if we mix them all the time, they're going to fight, they're going to try and reestablish their hierarchy and get their social order back to how they want it. So this is really just confirming what I think as producers you've always known and always tried to avoid. So when it comes to social interactions, what are the effects of these social stresses on the animals?
So it has a very significant impact on the potential and the ability to grow of the animals. It can really slow them down or alter their growth potential. We also know that individual animals react very differently to stresses. A small pig that hides in the corner and eats last is going to react differently to stress than the big pig who's the boss of the pen and does whatever he wants. So what we've got is the ability to cope. This is a title that we've given to the function of these pigs' ability to deal with stresses in their social environment, and it's a factor of size. So like I said, the big pig who's in charge of the pen does much better in stressful situations than the little pig that stays in the corner and eats last. So that's what we have managed to build in. So there are 3 layers to this social interaction. And each of these layers is a layer that's built within the prediction of the model. So what we've got is the potential. If you remember the framework way back at the very beginning, the pig has a potential. It desires to eat feed, it wants to grow, wants to meet all of its goals. Well, that's what this is. So they have a genetic potential. They want to express it by eating a desired feed intake of a particular feed. They want to live in a very good environment that provides them with everything they need, whether that's warmth, shade, water, feed, everything else. And they consume feed in order to meet those goals. Again, we know that this is a perfect environment and it doesn't necessarily exist. So when we have influencers, we have items that will have a negative influence, if you will, on the ability of those pigs to grow. So there's health, there's population density, animal space, feeder space, the feed itself, and all of these are going to have an impact on that ability of the animal to express its potential. But the last layer that we've just talked about is every animal reacts to these things differently. So we have the ability to cope that we put in place, and the ability to cope mediates the response of these stressors. So the little pig has a smaller ability to cope number. If there's a health challenge, the smaller pig gets sicker than the big pig. When there's a feeder space issue, the smaller pig gets less feed than the big pig, and that's how we've accounted for this in the model. Again, because we like to validate everything and make sure that we're reflecting reality, what we did was a real trial with stocking density. So we have a proper stocking density of pigs per pen. We have a high stocking density. And when you look at the numbers, we have the actual results for measuring the animal's growth and performance, and we have the model predicted results of what would happen in those situations. And you can see that the model and the actual are very close to each other for both regular density and low density. When you combine the two together, it's the same story. So really, with this validation, we can see that the model has a high degree of accuracy when it's predicting outcomes for feed programs, stress in this case, or anything else that we want to measure. And in these outcomes, I do apologize, it's hard to see on this graph, but we've managed to keep the variation to less than 3%. So in this trial, we were over 97% accurate in reflecting reality with the prediction of the model. And the final one is health. Health is a key driver of all growth performance. Without it, the pigs are not going to achieve any goals. And the way that we input health into the model is a simple survey that we go through with the producer, and it has a few different categories. There's mortality, there is air quality, there is respiratory and enteric challenges, and finally there's stress. You go through and you check the boxes of whatever is being exhibited in the barn, and it gives you a score. A score that falls between 11 and 15 is average. That's a normal commercial barn. You might have a cough here or there, or a little bit of loose manure, but it's normal. The higher numbers are sick pigs, so slightly sick, and very sick. And as you get lower numbers, it's moving towards optimal environment like we described at the beginning. That pig is expressing his full potential with no impediments on his growth. So once we have all this information input into the model and accounted for, we're able to start looking at the requirements of those animals and figuring out what we need for formulating diets and feeding to them. In this case, we're looking at the amino acid content of the protein and how we want to feed it, what's required by the animal. So there are different pools that we look at. We have the growth side, and then within the maintenance, we have maintenance protein, non-maintenance protein losses, endogenous losses in the intestine, skin and hair losses, and the final one, tying back into the health side of things, we look at the protein required to turn on the innate immune system. This looks at key immunoglobulins and other immune factors that have a high protein requirement to help fight health challenges in the pigs. So just to put it in a table and make it pretty clear what the differences are, we've got a pig that is just trying to grow. So these would be the requirements for a growing pig, healthy, and we would formulate a diet to these numbers. However, if there's a health challenge and they needed to activate the immune system, you can see the differences over here on the far right column. And in the highlighted cells, you can see the difference in requirements between a healthy and a sick animal. Threonine doubles, tryptophan is almost 4 times higher, and you can see that there's a very large shift in requirements between trying to achieve growth of lean muscle tissue or activating the immune system and fighting the disease challenge. So with all this information in place, we've predicted the requirements, we've accounted for the health, the environment, the animal. We have all the pieces necessary. Now we can start applying our knowledge and trying to figure out ways to make more money, because I think that's the ultimate goal here when we're raising pigs. One of the first applications is the shipping. So the shipping looks at the average response of those animals, and it allows us to come up with strategies for shipping. So there are 2 different ways that we can approach shipping pigs out to market and getting a return for them. The first, to try and make them better so that ultimately we can make more money with the pigs. This is an example of the full shipping report, so all the information that will be shown. The one thing it's important to remember is the information is only for living pigs that left the farm. The one thing that gets carried over from dead pigs or mortalities is their feed consumed. That feed didn't disappear, that feed was eaten, so it has to be accounted for. But their average daily gain or anything like that, it doesn't mean anything because they never left the barn or made you money. So all of these results are based on the animals that left the barn and made money for you. So the results are broken down into growth performance, into carcass, and into financial. And so it really allows for a lot of information to look at and to figure out where are my problem areas and where do I want to try and improve. Again, with another validation on this shipping management, just to show that we have the ability to be very accurate in these predictions. So it's pretty easy to stand here and say, well, we can let the model predict using your pig price what the best shipping is. But we also know that the model has the ability to do it very accurately. If we look at the column at the end with the average results, it's very close on the end weight. It's very close on the average daily gain, feed conversion, and the carcass characteristics. So within this model, we've kept everything to being less than 4% variable from reality. So we're over 96% accurate in this result again. I think it's really important just to reiterate and to go over again. This comes from very good information going into the model and a very good user. Without those two things, these results are very hard to achieve. We have a saying that we use when we're training in the model, and I'm sure Peter uses it because he also trains garbage in, garbage out. So if you're putting very poor information into the system, you're going to get very poor information out of the system. Finally, onto the optimization. Optimization really came about because there are some problems that we really want to solve, but we needed to be able to use those individual pigs to do it. The NRC guide in 2012 said the biological requirements of the animals could be different than the economic requirements of those animals. So if you are feeding a diet that allows that pig to fully express its potential, like we saw on the very first slide, you give him everything he wants. That may not be the best idea because it could cost far too much money. And another economist at the BAM Pork Seminar in 2013 said, without the ability to look at that individual pig or group, we really rely on average metrics, average responses, like average daily gain, average daily intake, and so on. So now we have the ability to go past that, look at those individual animals, and figure out where the problem needs to be solved. Instead of looking at those numbers a few screens back, we saw that 835 average daily gain in grams per day. Well, we saw that the last group was only doing 750. Now we can identify the problem, and we can start fixing the problem instead of just seeing one number. And that was the necessity for optimization. So within the optimizer, we have three different things that we have to balance out. We have the animals themselves. We have the feed that's formulated to go into the farm and provide the animals their requirements. And we have the economics involved, with the pig price and the feed costs. And they all interact with each other. So the cost of feed is important. The amount of income that those animals are generating for you is very important. And the requirements of the animals are put into the feed formulation system in order to make the feed. So when we have these pieces of information built, the optimizer can go through its process and it can create a solution that is designed exactly for your facility, for your animals, and for your prices. This isn't a one-size-fits-all. This is customized exactly for you, using all of the tools that we've talked about to this point. And to answer a question maybe ahead of time that we had the other night, there's no limit on herd size. So we can do this for small groups of pigs, right through to massive integrators and large amounts of animals. So farms of 10, 20,000. The optimization process gives us up to 127,000 different answers. And so it goes through, generates 127,000 different answers to find you the one best answer for your farm. So it has a lot of power to make a decision, to find what's going to work best for you, based on exactly what it is that you want to achieve. Do you want a biological result? Do you want a financial result? It doesn't matter. It will find that answer for you. This is an example of a graph that would have come out of the optimizer in one of those results. You can see here, this would be a biological result. We've got feed to gain. We're trying to get the best feed to gain. And this would be the lysine content of the protein that we need to have in order to get that result. And so you can look at these graphs and you can find at the bottom of the curves each of the points for the lysine in the different diets. Again, this would be an economic response. This would be margin in Canadian dollars, I apologize. And you can see here, when you look at the curves, you can find the points where the lysine needs to be to make the most money with those pigs. Analyzing the graphs is a very nice way to figure out what the results are, because a model is just a series of equations. All it's doing is trying to find the best solution, and it will find the best solution for you, but it will split a peso down to fourth decimal place. Sometimes you really need some human intuition to analyze the results and figure out exactly what it is telling us. In this case, you have to remember to look at the scale on the axis. When we're looking at this one, this is a margin over feed cost. We're trying to make more money back. Each of these lines is $1, $1 Canadian dollar. So knowing that, it allows us to look at these curves and make a more meaningful interpretation. This curve is very flat. So the best solution would come all the way out here, and that would likely be a fairly expensive diet. However, since we know it's flat, we can work backwards on the curve, and knowing the scale, we can say, you know what, I'm willing to maybe give up 10 cents per pig in margin if it means saving a dramatic amount of money per ton of feed on that diet. So this is where that human aspect, that user aspect comes in interpreting the results. And again, the opposite on this one, this is a very steep response, so we know that optimum value is the one we're going with, because if we go in one direction or the other, we start costing ourselves $1 very quickly. So how do we apply this in a commercial environment? Well, a large producer had the objective, 32,000 sows, they wanted to improve their margins, they wanted to make more money. So what we did, we predicted with the model what the optimization for better margin would be. And then of course, just like always, validate it. Check back against the actual result. And so when we look here, we've got the Watson, or the model output, the actual result, and they are very close, especially for a commercial, uncontrolled environment. A research farm is one thing, but this is the real thing. And you can see there's only 3 cents difference in outcomes. 70 cents per pig may not seem like a lot of money, but on 32,000 sows, I actually sat down and did the numbers last night because I like numbers. That's over $500,000 for this producer that they made just by making this decision. So these tools allow us to find vast sums of money very quickly. We do have to remember though, cheap does not mean profit. So lowering your feed costs to try and generate more margin through savings is not always the best idea. Sometimes you have to have a better quality feed in order to achieve a goal. In this example, when we're looking at feed conversion, this would be that optimal, right from the very first slide. This is your biological optimum, 1.36 lysine. However, if we start looking at costs and understanding the price of generating a diet like that and feeding it to a pig, we can see very quickly, well, 1.36 is way too much money. We need to go back to 1.15 lysine in this diet. But that's for a low feed cost. That's if feed is reasonably priced. What happens if feed gets very expensive again? Because feed has a habit of going up and down in price. It doesn't like to stay steady. Well, if feed goes up in cost, you can see that the lysine requirement goes up in cost. Those pigs have to make more efficient use of the feed at that point. So now the requirement is 1.25. And really what we're trying to illustrate is that based on the dynamics of the market, pig price, feed price, everything else involved in raising the animals, we have tools that allow us to make very smart decisions on how to feed them and how to sell them for the most money possible. When it comes to reports, they allow us to identify the problem, to prioritize a solution, and then to actually bring that solution to the producer. In this case, we can look and we can identify very quickly what the two major aspects are that are causing the problem. Protein quality, your amino acids, that is affecting a large proportion of the population. So is pig space. Now, how do we prioritize between those two? A great example would be a producer saying, you know what, I love my diets. I don't want to change my feed. How can you solve this? Well, we can look over here and say, let's reduce your pig space. Let's give them more space, make them a little more comfortable, and we'll start improving your production numbers. And so that's the solution that we would apply in this scenario. Another example is just switching genetics. I'm sure it happens all the time, either wanting to try a new genetic company, or in this case, we had a producer that had a lot of health issues, so they wanted to clean out the barn and bring them back in. What we did was we set up the actual results to begin with, understand what was going on, and then we made the prediction of what these improved animals would be like coming back in with much better health, better environment, and everything else. A year later, we took all of that year's results out of the CompuQual system and sat them side by side with the original prediction and saw that we were quite close, especially on feed conversion. That's remarkable. Pig weight and carcass characteristics, we were very, very close on how those animals grew and performed for the producer. When it comes to applying precision nutrition solutions, this example is one that I did back in 2013. The soybean meal was extremely expensive. It was over $600 Canadian per metric ton. The amino acids were very cheap, relatively speaking. So we had the opportunity to take very expensive soybean meal out of these feeds, replace that protein content with synthetic amino acids. Had no negative impact on growth performance, but we saved a lot of money per pig. This is a very conservative number, and this article that I wrote was $6 Canadian per pig, but there are examples that we found over $10 per pig. The model allows us to really substitute, find best solutions for producers, and really help in hard times like this when feed is extremely expensive for them. Again, what do we do in these volatile markets? In this example, we know the feed cost was on average $330 per ton. The price that we were getting per pig was about $1.80 per kilogram. So how heavy do those pigs have to be? What's the best weight to send them to make the most money? So using the program, we determined that 125 kilograms is the best weight given these market conditions. So we can find these dynamic answers very quickly for producers to avoid a lot of unnecessary cost when it comes to raising animals. So just two more slides here. When it comes to genetic providers, we work very closely with genetic providers to not only predict results for their animals, but to do some of the items seen here with them. In the nucleus, in the multipliers, and in the commercial herds, the people that are buying those pigs. We can look at the requirements of the population and what the best proportion is to feed. Do you feed to the absolute best growing pig in the entire farm and everybody else gets way higher quality feed than they need? Or do you pick 60, 70, 80% of the pigs get everything they need and then a few pigs don't really get everything they want? We can do that. It allows for shipping, or split sex feeding, just a multitude of factors. And the final application we have, this one would be a packer that's actually owned by producers. So it's a cooperative of producers in Canada that own a packing plant, and they all send the pigs there. And what they wanted to do, they wanted to send pigs to the Japanese market. It's a lucrative market. They get very good premiums for those animals, but they have a problem with carcass quality. Because the Japanese market wants a very good carcass, and they weren't achieving that goal. So we worked with them, said, okay, we can use these tools to improve your animal to get into that market and make more money. Some of the things we did, we looked at nutrition strategies, we looked at shipping strategies, we looked at genetics. We really helped them across a bunch of different pools of ideas, and they improved their carcass quality. So really, in summary, when it comes to the tools, I know I spoke mostly on the model here today and how it requires information, how it makes predictions that can help your business to make more money, but we really have to remember that it is just one piece of a larger suite of tools. And I know that Manuel has a very good slide in his presentation that will add more detail to this. But what we really want to remember is we have the economic model and the benchmarking tools. We have our analysis tools like the NIR that allow us to look at ingredient differences. We have our nutritional database that we use with our formulation system to formulate the diets. And we have the animal model that consolidates all of this information along with your information from the farms to make the most meaningful decisions possible and ultimately to make the most money possible for your businesses. So with that, thank you very much for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
First I want to introduce myself. I'm Peter Laarmans, and I come from the Netherlands. I have more than 30 years experience in the swine industry. I did my education at the Wageningen University, where I did my Master of Science and also my PhD. And I'm now for more than 20 years with Trouw Nutrition. Different positions on field and also in the Swine Research Center, where I did mainly my research on swine nutrition. The topic I want to address today is about transition management of high-quality sow. I want first to give a short introduction about the topic. Then I want to continue about the farrowing process and the survival of newborn piglets. Then a little bit about the critical control points of the duration of the farrowing process and the personal strategies we could provide to improve the farrowing process. And I'm going to finish with some conclusions. So when we look to the sow we have today, then we have to conclude that that is a totally different sow from the sow we had 20 years ago. I have here some data from Denmark. There's about data from 1 million sows in Denmark. That is genetic, and that is, let's say, one of the highest prolific sows that is around in the world today. And I have here the litter size, and I have here the years from 1992 till 2016. And that is statistical not good. I have extrapolated the data up to 2030 to see, okay, what are the trends, what can we expect in the coming years. And you see, when we look to the total ball, so that is the blue line, you see that we have made a tremendous increase in total ball piglets. And we are now in 2018, so Denmark, total number of piglets born is around 18 on average. And when you also look to the number of weaned piglets, we see that that has also increased from less than 10 till now around 14 piglets per litter. And when we extrapolate that, let's say to 2025, you see that that will further increase to 20 piglets total born and around 60 piglets weaned. So that is a huge amount. And what is, I think, more important, and that is also a little bit what I want to talk about with you today, is the difference between the total born and the number of weaned piglets. Because in 1992 we had 2 piglets, and that has now increased to 4 piglets. 4 piglets that are stillborn and a pre-weaning mortality. And I think it's a challenge for us as industry to break that trend and try to reduce this number from 4, also bring it back to 3, or maybe even less. Because when you look what is happening when we are selecting genetic selection and we are selecting on high, bigger litters, you see that the birth rate, the average birth rate is going down. So here you see the different litter sizes. And I have divided the piglets in different birth rates. So the colors are expressing different birth rates. So piglets, the birth rate of more than 1.8 kilograms, till piglets with a birth rate of less than 1 kilo. And when you look to the increase in litter size, you see that the amount of piglets with a birth rate above 1.4 kilogram has hardly increased. The piglets that we are getting are smaller piglets and are weaker piglets. So with these bigger litters, we get lower birth rate, average birth rate, we get more variation, and we get weaker piglets. And when we look to the nutrition of the sow, there are different foods that the nutrition of the sow is influenced on the viability of the piglets. The nutrition of the sow is influenced on the development of the piglets in early and late gestation. There's also influence on the birth process and the startup of the milk production at the end of gestation. And both these processes are hormonal regulated. And when we have health issues in sows around farrowing, and that has an effect on the hormonal regulation, and that will then affect the start of the farrowing process and also the start of the Today I want to focus on farrowing process, because we think that the farrowing process, when that is suboptimal, then that has a big impact on performance of the piglet and the survivability of piglets. Because when we look to the number of stillborn piglets, and we look to the number of the quality of the piglets just before farrowing, we have to conclude that most of the piglets that are at the end of the gestation that are vital piglets, and that are piglets that should, when they are normally born, that could be healthy piglets. That is shown in this study. So here they have data from a couple of hundred sows where they have done cesarean sections on day 113 of gestation. So these piglets were not born natural, but they were born via cesarean section, and they didn't have to go, let's say, to the birth process. And when we look to the number of stillborn piglets, you see that percentage of stillborn piglets is very low, and that most of the piglets that they are born, they are piglets that could be born alive. And that shows that the quality of these piglets is good, but that there is something going wrong in the farrowing process we have to manage. And that is also shown in this data from our research center. When we look to the birth weight distribution of our piglets, from piglets with a birth weight less than a half kilo, up to piglets with a birth weight more than 1.5 kilograms, and we look to the piglets that are born, stillborn, compared with the piglets that are born alive, we see that the distribution is more or less the same. So it is not, let's say, the weak piglets that are stillborn, but that are also piglets that have a good birth weight, and that could be healthy piglets. Also, when you look to studies where they have supervision of the farrowing process, which means that there is a person during the farrowing process is there to help the sow if there is a problem, and you compare that with farrowings where there was no supervision during the farrowing process, you see that in these cases the number of stillborn piglets is higher, and in this case, on average, more than a half a piglet per liter. So again, with supervision, these piglets would be born alive. Without supervision of the farrowing process, these piglets were stillborn. When we look to the farrowing process and we look to the stillborn, there is also data from our research center. The birth order is very important. So here we have birth order, so the piglets that were born at the beginning of the farrowing process, so 1 to 6, 7 to 12, and the piglets that were born after the 12th piglet. And then we have red are the piglets that are stillborn. And you see that in the beginning of the farrowing process, there is hardly any stillborn piglet, whereas at the end of the farrowing process, you see that you have 20% of stillborn piglets. So the birth order has an influence on the percentage of stillborn. Another important factor on stillborn is the duration of the farrowing. So I've here split our data in farrowings that last less than 5 hours and farrowings that last more than 5 hours. Then again, I have divided the piglets that were born in the beginning of the farrowing process, they were born at the end of the farrowing process. And you see that the farrowings with more than 5 hours, you see that there you have the majority of the mortality. And again, you see that in general, when the duration of the farrowing process is more than 5 hours, you have more mortality than when you have short farrowing process. Another factor that has an influence on the duration of the farrowing process is the parity number. So here we have the different parity numbers, and here we have the duration of the farrowing process in minutes. And you see that the older the sows get, the longer the farrowing process will be. And with that, you can expect that with older sows you will have more stillborn piglets than with younger sows. And when we have more stillborn piglets, that can also be an indication that you then also will have more pre-weaning mortality. Because when piglets are stillborn, they have, let's say, they are at a shortage of oxygen and they die, but there will also be piglets that just survive and that will die in the first days after farrowing. So we think that the piglets that die pre-weaning, that is related to the farrowing process. Because here you see the days in after farrowing, and here you see the distribution of the mortality over the whole lactation period. And around 80% of the mortality is in the first 3 to 4 days. And we think that is related to the farrowing process. You will see that in the farm that you have more piglets are crushed, or they are starved, they could not have milk intake. But I think that has to do something with the farrowing process. And we see that in this picture. So here we have the piglets that were born alive, and here we have the mortality period, and again we have here the birth order. So the piglets that were first born and the piglets that were later born. And again you see that the piglets that were born at the end of the farrowing process at the highest risk of mortality. And when you look further to the distribution of the birth weight in relation to the survival of the piglets, so here we have again the different birth weight categories from less than 0.750 grams and more than 1.5 kilograms. You see that majority of the piglets have a birth weight of more than 1 kilo, but around 15% of your piglets have a birth weight, of our piglets have a birth weight of less than 1 kilo. And you see that there we have the highest mortality, so the lowest survival rate. So the normal birth weight, you see that the survival is over 90%, but when the birth weight is less than 0.8 kilograms, and that is in this case was less than 50%. And that has also to do something with that increased variation in the litter. If you have a piglet of 800 grams and that is born at the end of the farrowing process, and at the mammary gland there are already 12 piglets suckling, and that is for that piglet very difficult to obtain colostrum intake. And when that piglet cannot have enough colostrum intake, then that piglet will die. So colostrum management and let's say management of these let's say low birth weight piglets is something we can use to improve the survivability of these piglets. So the question is, why do we have more stillborn piglets at the end of the farrowing process? And we think that has something to do with the uterine contractions. So here we have the uterine contractions over say 24 minutes, 3 days before farrowing, 3 hours before farrowing, and during the farrowing process. So you see that here you have very little contractions. You see that 5 hours before farrowing you have more contractions. But during the farrowing process you have a lot of contractions. Of course that is also necessary to bring the piglets out of the sow. But with every contraction the blood supply to the uterus wall is blocked. And when the blood supply is blocked, then there is a risk that these piglets get a shortage of oxygen. And with that, they have with shortage of oxygen, they have a risk that they develop asphyxia, and with that you can have, let's say, damage, and that could be the reason that these piglets are still born. And when there is a shortage of oxygen, we know that then the energy metabolism in the animal will change from aerobic to anaerobic. And when we have an anaerobic energy metabolism, the lactate level in the blood will increase. And that is what we have measured in the next slide. So here we have the lactate level, and here we have the birth order of the piglets born. And we we see that with increasing birth order, we see that the lactate level is increasing. And another way to measure, let's say, asphyxia and anaerobic energy metabolism is to measure the blood pH in these piglets. And you see that with birth order, you see that the pH of the blood is decreasing. So that are both indicators, and that is also not, let's say, what we are doing in our research center, but it is also common practice in human medicine to measure lactate levels in anaerobic energy metabolism. When we put these lactate levels, so here I put the lactate levels, and I have here I have the mortality rate, the survival rate of the piglets, so the piglets that were born alive, and I've presented, and you see that when the lactate level is less than 4.5, you see that the mortality rate is 5%, but when the lactate level is going above 4.5, you see that the mortality is increased to 10%. So it has a big impact, let's say, not only, let's say, on the stillbirths, but also on the pre-weaning survival. You can have a very closer look to the lactate levels and some characteristics of the piglets. So here we have again the lactate levels, and the data of around 500 piglets, and we see that piglets with a higher birth weight, they suffer less from high lactate levels, so they have lower lactate levels, and piglets with a low birth weight. And we think that that is related to the placenta size of the piglets. A bigger piglets will have a bigger placenta, and a smaller piglet will have a smaller placenta. And the placenta is the buffer between, say, the sow and the piglet. And we think that due to the placenta size, these piglets can buffer or manage better these shortage of oxygen and these low birth weight piglets. Another parameter is the interval between the birth and the first suckling. And we see that also these low birth weight piglets, they have more problems to get to the mammary gland. And we also measured the colostrum intake for the first 24 hours. And you see that they also significantly reduce, have a lower colostrum intake compared to the high birth weight piglets. So when we look to the risk factors of piglets of asphyxia in stillborn piglets and pre-weaning mortality, then we have risk factors that are related to the sow. And I mentioned already the age of the sow. But another risk factor is the condition of the sow, and I'll come back to that later. The stress, let's say, around farrowing, and of course the duration of the farrowing process. And we have also factors that are related to the piglet, and that is the order of birth, so when is the piglet born, and the weight of the piglet. So what can we do with nutrition in relation to the duration of the farrowing process? As mentioned, condition is one of the risk factors, and that is also shown in this study. So here we have the duration of the farrowing process, and here we have the backpack thickness at farrowing. And I put here a threshold line at 5 hours, so we have hours, and you see that the sows that had a higher backpack thickness are a higher risk to have longer duration of the farrowing duration, and that have a higher risk on stillborn piglets. So in general, I think condition management should always be the basic of sow world production. If the condition of the sow is not good and the sows are too fat or too thin, then you should first work on that, and then you can look to other factors in that. And the condition and the nutritional needs of the sow is depending on many factors. So this is the husbandry, so where is that animal housed? That is the condition at mating, that is the parity number, that is the body weight of the sow. During gestation, 70% of the energy requirements of the sow is going to maintenance. And the energy requirement for maintenance is depending on the body weight of the sow. The genetic, so every genetic has its own optimal body weight and back thickness at farrowing. Of course, the production level, we have much piglets or less piglets. The activity of the sow during gestation, is the sow active, is the sow standing a lot, or is he very, very quiet? I'm standing here, you are sitting there. I also have a little bit of stress of this presentation, and my energy requirements at this moment are twice as the energy requirement from you sitting there. So there are all factors we should take into account. And another factor is the temperature. Heat stress, I think it's not so a big issue, but when you are in areas where it is getting cold and the temperature is lower than the lower critical temperature, then the sow needs extra energy to maintain your body weight, body temperature, and that also requires energy. So there are many factors that are involved in the energy and nutritional requirements of the sow, and that's why we also have developed a sow model to help you to make decisions about the feeding scheme and also the feed composition of the station diet. And I will show you a graph from our model. So here we have the requirements of the sow during gestation. So here we have the days in gestation, and here we have the protein deposition during gestation. And in the beginning of gestation, most of the protein deposition will go to the sow itself. So we have to repair body weight loss during the previous lactation. The sow or the girl still needs to grow, so most of the protein will go to the sow itself. And in the middle of gestation, placentas are growing. So then extra energy and protein is needed for the placenta growth. And at the end of gestation, we need more protein for the development of the piglets and the development of the mammary gland to prepare the sow for the lactation period. Another factor that can have an influence on the duration of the farrowing process is the amount of fiber in the diet. And in this trial, we have two diets. A diet rich in starch and a diet rich in fiber and fat. We have, let's say, the same energy level. And when you use a higher fiber diet, you want to reduce the incidence of constipation. You know that at the end of gestation, we see often that constipation is an issue. We get more hard feces, and with fiber we can reduce that incidence. And that is also shown in this figure that we could reduce the incidence of heart pieces with 50%. And we found that we could also reduce the duration of the farrowing process. And another important factor is that we could increase the colostrum intake of the low birth weight piglets. Another study where they have looked to the effect of fiber on the level of constipation. In this study they had two diets, one with 3.8% fiber and one with 7% fiber, so the high fiber diet. And they scored the feces, or the level of constipation between 0 and 4. And when we had a score of 0, then there was, let's say, a high incidence of constipation. And when there was a score of 4, then there was no constipation. And you see that with the high fiber diet, we could significantly reduce the level of constipation. You see that around farrowing, when the sow is almost eating nothing, that then there is a risk on constipation, but you see that with the high fiber diet you can reduce that risk. We have done research to look, okay, what is it only good fiber, or is it also different fiber sources? And we have studied different fiber sources like cellulose and hemicellulose to see, okay, which fiber source gives the best quality feces, and with which fiber source we can reduce the incidence of constipation. And here I have some results of that study. So here we have measured the dry matter content in feces. And here we have the days before and after the start of the trial. And before the trial started, all the sows had a lactation diet with a low fiber level. And then we switched to a diet with, that was rich in cellulose. And cellulose is our root shavings, so that is a very inert fiber source. And we had a source hemicellulose, so that was wheat bread. When you look at the dry matter content, you see that on the hemicellulose, on the wheat bread treatment, we saw that we could get a very nice response on the dry matter content of the feces. So the dry matter content went down, so there was more water in the feces, and we had much softer feces compared to the lactation diet and the cellulose diet. Of course, with cellulose you get more feces because it is an inert product, but you don't get, let's say, soft feces or feces with a lower dry matter content. So when the sow is farrowing and the farrowing process is not going in the right direction or is stopped, then there are several solutions we can use to help the sow to continue in the farrowing process and to stimulate muscle contractions. One of the solutions that can be used is oxytocin, so that will stimulate muscular contractions of the uterus. In some cases, the sow could suffer from an hypocalcemia, and that could also be a reason that the farrowing process is stopped. There are also solutions where you can provide the sow with extra dextrose. But I have to say that none of these solutions give, let's say, good results because they are only looking at the symptoms and not the cause of the problem. Because we think that the cause of the problem is already some days before the farrowing process. And you should start with the solution and to give the sows the solution to work on the cause. So we have done research in that area, and we have developed a product that you can give to the sow, and that will help the sow to have a better farrowing process, and will reduce the incidence of asphyxia in the piglets. And we have developed a supplement that can be given via the water. And the reason that we are giving the supplement via the water is that when we look to the phenotype of the sow, at the end of the station we see that the phenotype of the sow will reduce. Whereas the water intake, so here I have the days before farrowing and the days after farrowing, and we have, let's say, measured the water intake. You see that the water intake is remaining on a good level, and also during the day of farrowing the sow still drinks water to give the solution. So the product that we have developed is a liquid supplement, and that should be offered to the sows at least 5 days before farrowing, up to farrowing. And with that we can improve the oxygen supply towards the piglets in the farrowing process, and that will result in a lower number of stillborn piglets and more viable piglets, piglets born alive. We have done several trials to prove that our solution is working, and I will show you some data from the trials we have done. So in this study we had around 50 sows on a control treatment, on the control group and in the treatment group. And when we looked to the piglets born alive, we saw a tendency of an increase of 0.6 piglets, and we had also a reduction in the number of stillborn piglets with 0.6. When we looked to the colostrum intake, there was a tendency of a higher colostrum intake, but what I think is even more important is that we could reduce the number of piglets with a very low colostrum. Because it is not about the average colostrum intake. So you can have, let's say, an average colostrum intake of 300 grams. But if you have, let's say, a high percentage of piglets that have a colostrum intake of, let's say, 50 to 100 grams, then these piglets have a big problem, because probably these piglets will die. So it is important that every piglet has a minimum colostrum intake of 250 milligrams, because that is the amount that is needed to, let's say, to have a good survival rate. And you see that we could halve that in this trial, and we could also reduce the mortality till weaning from 11 to 5.5%. In the 3 controlled studies we have done at our research center, we found 0.8 piglets extra till weaning. And with that I want to conclude my presentation. The majority of the piglets that are at the end of gestation are viable piglets. There are piglets that can be vital piglets. Piglets can suffer from variable degrees of asphyxia, and the order of birth and the duration of the farrowing process have a big impact on the level of asphyxia. And piglets that are born alive and that suffer from asphyxia have a higher risk of pre-weaning mortality and reduced performance. And the key to reduce stillborn piglets and pre-weaning mortality is, in our vision, to reduce asphyxia. And I've shown you some nutritional solutions that you can use to increase the number of piglets born alive and to improve the pre-weaning performance. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention.
Dificultades, por supuesto. Y también el comercio del carne aumentará hasta 19%. Y esto es también un desafío porque los números de animales aumentará y en las partes del mundo donde está en este momento muchos animales. Ya. Creo que voy a cambiar, ¿no? Para mí lo más importante es que ustedes me entienden y no para mí uso intensivo de español. Okay. And with those changes put on the mic, with those changes in numbers of animals, also the level of antibiotics which will be used will be increased. So they think from 2010 until 2030, the level of antibiotics which will be used will increase with 67%. The majority of the antibiotics is used in the pig sector and besides that also in the poultry sector. Research has shown that the cause of death in humans is estimated to, in 2050, to be the major cause of death will be resistance to antimicrobials in humans. So it means that when you have like for example, a pulmonary infection, the antibiotics will not work. That is something, of course, we would like to avoid, and that is why in the world now there are some tendencies for producers to reduce the use of antibiotics. This doesn't mean that they will not use any antibiotics, but they will reduce the use to a certain amount, and that will be for 4 reasons. So one of them is that the legislation will change. So in some countries this already happens. For example, in Europe, we are not allowed to use antibiotics in the feed anymore. And also China is following the same direction. In China, they will not allow the use of antibiotics in the feed anymore in 2020. Another reason is that some producers, they see that the antibiotics are not working anymore in their animals. So they see actually the resistance in the animals, and that is why they want to change from antibiotics to another solution. And therefore, they are also reducing the use of antibiotics. Another factor is the market demand. So, for example, McDonald's is already asking their suppliers to reduce the use of antibiotics, or even only buy chickens, for example, without any antibiotics used. The last one is that some producers themselves, they decide not to produce meat without using antibiotics. So this is happening, for example, in Canada, where they have a brand named RWA, and they put that in the supermarket, and everywhere they see that meat is raised without antibiotics, and they actually get a higher price for their meat. So they created their own niche market. Also, some trend that we see is that research has shown the animal production is actually 30 to 40% below their genetic potential. So that means that the animals are not producing at their top, and that can have multiple reasons. The problems with health, so subclinical health problems, or also problems with suboptimal production circumstances. And we think that we can help those animals by producing more efficiently, by managing the intestinal health, which of course is very important in the digestion and the growth of the animals. And prudent use of antibiotics. So use antibiotics when the animals need it, and this will also help to create a healthy animals and will increase the production capacity. So this is a little summary of some trends we see in the market. And so one of them is antimicrobial resistance. So we see that some customers want to reduce the need of antibiotics. Another important factor is control of pathologies, intestinal pathologies. This is also, for example, the subclinical infections are a big part of this. And by helping the producers with these problems, we think we can increase the production capacity of the animal. And of course, one big and one important tendency is always efficient production. So to have the less cost possible and to have the highest production as possible. And for these three factors, we created programs to incorporate all of those needs of customers. So we like to say that we are, we want to help you as a producer to be able to reduce the needs for antibiotics, to produce healthy animals, and to maintain your profitability or increase your profitability. So we have three programs. We can help you with the reduction of antibiotics. We can help you with controlling microorganisms in your production and efficient production of your animals. And these three are, of course, aligned with each other. So if you have a better control of microorganisms, you will need less antibiotics, and of course you will have a more efficient production. So how do we think we can offer you the best solution? We would like to have a look at your complete production chain, not only at your farm and not only at your feed mill, but at the complete production chain to give you the best and most suitable advice. So we start at the beginning. We start at the raw materials, and we end at the slaughterhouse. So we analyze the raw materials coming in from the harbor or maybe from the train, wherever they are coming from. We have a look at the transport process, the feed mill, the production of the feed, then the production of the animals itself in the farms, and at the end the processing of the meat. So in the slaughterhouse or any other place, the meat is processed. And within the production of the animals, we would like to look at also the complete production chain. So starting from the multipliers, or starting from the grandparents, going all the way to the finishers. So every chain in the production has its own challenges and its own difficulties, and we would like to see all of them because, of course, they are influencing each other. So by taking a look at the complete infection spread in the production chain, we can also have a look at the complete prevention within those chains. So looking at the transmission going from level to level, we would like to analyze and give you the best advice. And within that whole program, or within the whole analysis, we say we focus on three pillars. So one is management, the feed management, one is the farm management, and one is the health management. Because in our opinion, if you have one of those three with a problem, the other two will also be influenced. So if you have a bad feed quality, the health management on the farm will be more difficult because you have more digestive problems. if you have a bad farm management, you can have a very good and very expensive and very well-designed feed, but at the end, again, you will have digestive problems. So that is why we like to work with the feed farm and health management. So using those feed and the feed farm health management and analyzing your production chain, your complete production chain from raw materials to slaughterhouse, we think we are able to give you the best and the best solution and the best advice. So how do we do that? It's a good question. What we want to do is we want to have a look at your farm and have a look at your data to give you at the end our advice. So we go to, for example, the feed mill, or we want to go to the farm and analyze your farm. So, for example, taking samples in the feed mill, taking fecal samples in the farm, anything you can think of. Then we like to analyze the results and combining them also with, for example, your performance data, anything you have, and then we combine everything and we try to implement a solution, and with implementing that solution we want to monitor how you are improving, hopefully. And at the end, we together take a look at the complete process and define the strategy moving forward. So this is an example of what we have done with some big integrators in different parts of the world. So what we do is we analyze the data, the performance data, and we also analyze the use of antibiotics. But we do that for every farm. So not for the complete company, but for every farm a specific number. And at the end you get a picture like this. So this box is having a high performance and a low antibiotic use. This box is having a low performance and a high antibiotic use. So these, and all the greens are separate farms. So what we think is that the farms in the red box, so the farms with a high antibiotic use and a low performance, they need a different approach than the farms with a low antibiotic use and a high performance. So by analyzing all of the farms and these results, we think we can give you a well-designed advice for every specific farm, instead of having a general advice for your whole company. And when we talk about feed farm health, we have specific points where we want to look at. So, for example, talking about farm feed management, we want to see your raw material management, look at the formulation of the diet, physical structure of the feed, and feed safety. Taking a deeper look, for example, the NIR, well, not everyone has a NIR, but we can have a look at the NIR and the database of your nutritional database, and compare them also with other results in our database. Reactive lysine is one part that you can look at. Economic models, so for example the swine model we talked about this morning, we can also implement that at the farm as part of the complete program. Physical structure of the feed, very important, so the pellet quality, the diameter and the durability of the quality of the pellet. Trace mineral nutrition is one part where we want to have a good look at, and total hygiene audit. So if you take a look at this, we perform what we call a feed safety scan. So we go to the feed mill and analyze all of the critical control points in that feed mill by taking swabs or taking samples to be able to analyze yeast and molds and mycotoxins and enterobacteria, and also moisture level of the feed. Because we like to analyze the risks coming from the feed mill to be able to implement that and see the effect in the animals in your production. Also, one part of it is mycotoxin risk management program. So we analyze all of the feeds globally with our MycoMasters, and we make a risk estimation of your mycotoxin levels in the feed. So we have like over 100 MicroMasters worldwide, and that means we have a very big database, so we can compare the results from your mycotoxin levels with other, for example, with other customers in Mexico or other customers in any part of the world, to see what is your level and what is the risk you have in your production. Critical points in the farm management will be, of course, climate and farm equipment tools, biosecurity and hygiene, water quality, very important, and management in the piglets. So, for example, in farm management, we have to take a look at the design of the farm. We have farm management experts who know everything about how to design the best farm. So, of course, with whatever is possible at your company, we want to improve the design of the farm. Take a look at walking lines, how to have the less chance for spreading the diseases. Biosecurity is an important factor. Cleaning and hygiene and cleaning protocols, disinfection protocols, water quality. So, for example, these are analyses we can do to determine the hygiene level of your water. Analyze the water for microbiology, the buffering capacity, pH, also yeast and molds we can analyze. To also get an idea of the biofilm in your water lines. Biosecurity and cleaning protocols, we can take swabs of your farm to see how effective is that cleaning protocol. Colostrum management, consumption of the water from the sow, and the speed of the parts, the perambulation. The temperature in the house, the climate circumstances, CO2 level, ventilation, airspeed, you can analyze it all. So this is in line with what Peter just said, so I will skip that. Then also the health management. Critical points in farm management, in health management. So the quality of the piglets and the health status on the farm. So which diseases do you normally occur, at which phases, how many antibiotics do you use, and at what point. So those are all will be all analyzed in this part of the scan.